The Asus ROG Phone 5 and OPPO Find X3 Pro are finally here, but how will the ROG Phone 5 stack up against its predecessor, the ROG Phone 3 with the same massive 6000 mAh battery, and how will the Find X3 Pro compete against its greatest rivals, the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra and iPhone 12 Pro Max in this real-life usage battery drain test. We have the largest battery-packed phones all the way on the left-hand side being the ROG Phone 5 and 3 with the same size cell, the S21 Ultra in the middle with a 5000 mAh battery. Beside that, the OPPO Find X3 Pro with a 4500 mAh cell, which is up from the 4260 mAh cell in its predecessor. And last but not least, well actually certainly least, the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a 3687 mAh battery. I've updated all devices to their latest available software update, that is Android 11 on the ROG Phone 5, as well as the S21 Ultra and OPPO Find X3 Pro, Android 10 on the ROG Phone 3, and iOS 14 on the iPhone. Even though you can see some cell reception bars on the S21 Ultra, I can assure you that there are no SIM cards in any devices. I've dropped the refresh rate of all high refresh rate panels here, that being the Android devices, down to 60Hz to match the iPhone. And not just to match it, but also to see how darn good the ROG Phone 5 battery life really can be. Since the ROG phones lack a QHD Plus panel and the iPhone sits somewhere in between Full HD and QHD, I've dropped the Samsung and OPPO down to Full HD Plus to match the lot. We'll be jumping through some scrolling, music streaming, social media, video streaming, camera benchmarks, and finally gaming in this real life battery drain test, all on each device for the exact same amount of time. I've also used a Lux luminous meter to make sure all phones are set to the same brightness levels, and if one phone looks brighter than another, it's due to my studio lighting and isn't actually brighter at all. I'm really excited to share the results here with you guys today. This is Tech Nick, and without further ado, let's go. Before we get going, it's probably worth checking out that all phones are topped off at 100% and currently on charge, which they are. During each time interval, every 30 minutes, we're going to be checking out the temps in degrees Celsius. We're going to check it right now as well, but bear in mind that all phones are currently placed on charge, so you can't really compare them at the moment. But after the first interval, you surely can. We'll be checking out the interval as well as the peak to see which one can get the hottest over time, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Unplugging all devices, hitting that start on the timer all the way on the right hand side, we have the timer interval at the top right hand corner above the timer interval device. We have some specs at the bottom of each phone, and we have the current app that we're busy with at the bottom right. Remember that time interval is in relation to the percentage above each phone and below each branding of the phone, and it is not measured in real time. After the first time interval, that being 30 minutes, we have 98% on the ROG Phone 5, 99 beating it, the ROG Phone 3, 95% on the S21 Ultra, which is trailing the pack here, and 100% on the OPPO and iPhone 12 Pro Max, both with the smallest batteries, both still at 100%. And we have the coolest device being the iPhone and the hottest being the OPPO. So far so good for Apple. Thermals aren't looking too good for OPPO. We'll have to see how it pans out later on. After the second time interval, that is the 1 hour mark, we have 94% on the ROG Phone 5, 2% ahead of that now the ROG Phone 3 with 96%, 92 on the S21 Ultra, still trailing the pack, the OPPO Find X3 Pro dropping quite quickly now with 96%, now 2% behind that of the current leader, the iPhone 12 Pro Max of 98%. Bear in mind that the OPPO does have a much smaller battery than the ROG Phone 3, but it's currently matching it in battery life. You've also got to bear in mind that we have a Snapdragon 888 chipset inside the ROG Phone 5, S21 Ultra, yes I do have the Snapdragon variants of the device, as well as the OPPO Find X3 Pro. The iPhone has A14 Bionic chip, and that is also on 5nm tech, meaning that the only phone that should not be as efficient as the rest is the ROG Phone 3, since it's the only one here running on older technology, that being 7nm plus node technology. So it should be interesting to see how the ROG Phone 5 stacks up against it, since yes, the ROG Phone 5 does have a more efficient chip at 5nm, but we all know by now the Snapdragon 888 does have its fair share of problems in terms of overheating, which could cause the battery to drain quicker. And so far it looks that way, since the ROG Phone 3 is still 2% ahead, even though this smartphone is a year old. We have the S21 Ultra still trailing the pack here with 83%. Just behind that is the OPPO Find X3 Pro with 85%, and leading the pack is the iPhone and the ROG Phone. Still after the 2.5 hour mark interval, the iPhone and ROG Phone 3 are leading the pack with 85% apiece. 84% is the ROG Phone 5 just behind that. 81% then is the OPPO Find X3 Pro, now slightly catching catching up to the S21 Ultra, which is not a good thing since they're fighting for last spot here. The iPhone is still the coolest and the OPPO is still the hottest. Getting to that 3-hour mark interval, 81% on the ROG Phone 5, 83 on the ROG Phone 3, 77 on the S21 Ultra, which is now beating the OPPO Find X3 Pro after just 3 hours, and 81% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is now matching the ROG Phone 5 and behind the ROG Phone 3 for the first time in the test. We're currently busy with YouTube checking out all my videos over here. The iPhone's screen brightness accidentally jumped up, so I used my Lux Luminous meter to bring things back down again to match the rest of the devices. And on 3 hours and 31 minutes now, we have 78% on the ROG Phone 5, 80% on the ROG Phone 3, still just a 2% gap between those two devices, 73% on the S21 Ultra, now 2% lead over the OPPO Find X3 Pro, and 77% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is now below the ROG Phone 5, now starting to drop quite quickly, that being the iPhone, reaching that 4-hour mark interval after running a 4K looped video on VLC. 75% on the ROG Phone 5, 77%, still a 2% gap between it and its predecessor, the ROG Phone 3, 71 on the S21 Ultra, 67 on the OPPO Find X3 Pro, dropping quick here, and 74% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, not just 1% behind the ROG Phone 5. Currently recording a selfie video at 1080p at 30 FPS. The only reason we're doing this is because all my previous battery drain tests have been limited to 1080p and 30 FPS, so we want to keep the results as comparable as possible. Remember, you cannot compare these results to other smartphone channels, other tech channels out there, their battery drain test results, but you can compare them within my channel since I always use the same set of apps and the exact same brightness with the volume disabled. We're currently running 4K 30 FPS once again for the same reason, so that we can compare it across all devices on my channel that have undergone the exact same test. And reaching that 5-hour mark interval, we have the ROG Phone 5 at 63%, still just 2% behind its predecessor, the ROG Phone 3 with 65%, 52% on the S21 Ultra. The only one below 50% now is the OPPO Find X3 Pro with 49%, but just 3% behind the S21 Ultra, and it does have a much larger battery, that being the S21 Ultra. 58% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, once again dropping quite quickly. Now we're rocking some benchmarks here to simulate high performance gaming, since I can't play games on all 5 devices at the exact same time. And reaching that 5-hour mark interval after running through Antutu as well as 3D Mark Wildlife, we have 45% on the ROG Phone 5, 52 on the ROG Phone 3, 41 on the Samsung, 31, now 10% below the Samsung is the OPPO, and 45% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, once again matching the ROG Phone 5. But just take a second and look at the interval and peak of the ROG Phone 5, thanks to that wonderful Snapdragon 888 chipset, even though it has some pretty beefy cooling system in there. 68.1 degrees in Celsius on the ROG Phone 5 is the hottest I have ever seen, and here I thought the Mi 11 was the hottest at 65 degrees in Celsius. 68.1 is absolute madness, but after GFX benchmark run for 30 minutes, it's no longer the hottest at the interval. The hottest is now the OPPO with 51.4 degrees in Celsius, but the ROG Phone 5 is still the hottest peak here with 68.1, since that is the hottest it has gotten on the test so far, and definitely quite a bit hotter than any other phone around on this table here. After 6.5 hours, we have 33% on the ROG Phone 5, now 5% lead over the iPhone 12 Pro Max, 41% on the ROG Phone 3, a massive jump ahead of the ROG Phone 5 now with an 8% lead, then 27% on the S21 Ultra, and 10% on the OPPO Find X3 Pro. Not looking too good for OPPO over here. Once again, that Snapdragon 888 chipset is pretty toxic here in 2021. The OPPO Find X3 Pro did make it to 7 hours. Thankfully for that, we have 29% on the ROG Phone 5, 37% on the ROG Phone 3, 23% on the Samsung, 4% on the OPPO, and 23% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The OPPO decides to say cheers to us, guys. I cannot do this any longer thanks to this god-awful Snapdragon 888 chipset. 7 hours and 14 minutes is still pretty good. I regard over 6 hours of screen on time, great battery life on a phone, over 8 hours, excellent battery life on a phone. This is slap bang in the middle, so this is pretty decent battery life. 7 hours, 14 minutes for a 4,500 milliamp hour cell is definitely worth it. We have 7.5 hours now, 22% on the ROG Phone 5, 4% ahead of the iPhone 12 Pro Max on 18%, which is 1% ahead of the S21 Ultra, leading the pack here with 10% over its successor, the ROG Phone 3 with 32%, the hottest phone being the ROG Phone 5 in the interval and the peak, and the coolest still being the iPhone, which hasn't changed all test. After 8 hours, thankfully all of these phones have made it to that 8-hour mark. We have the ROG Phone 5 with 18%, still 10% behind the ROG Phone 3 with 28%, 12% on the Samsung, just 1% behind the iPhone now. The iPhone has been dropping a hell of a lot in these last couple hours here at now 13%, and we're reaching that 8.5-hour mark. Can all these devices make it to the 9-hour mark? 8.5 hours, 13% on the ROG Phone 5, still 10% down from the ROG Phone 3 at 23% with a less efficient chip. But remember, the ROG Phone 5 does have a larger screen, 7% on the iPhone, 5% on the Samsung. Which one is going to clock out first? And it is indeed the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra with 8 hours and 48 minutes. That is still superb battery life. I have gotten almost 9 hours on the S21 Ultra before. Some have gotten over that time, and it's not doing too bad with an end temp a lot lower than the OPPO Find X3 Pro, but that is because of the last app that it was running. And after 9 hours, the ROG Phone 5, ROG Phone 3 and iPhone all made it. 10% on the ROG Phone 5, still 10% behind the ROG Phone 3 at 20% and 5% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Even though it has the smallest battery over here, it's outlasted the Samsung and the OPPO after 9 hours and 17 minutes, which is absolutely superb. The best time I've ever gotten on the iPhone. I've actually gotten this exact same result before, 9 hours and 17 minutes. The other one was 9 hours and 6 minutes. So it's pretty consistent over here with a milliamp hour per minute reading of 6.62, which is honestly unbeatable if you're looking at the OPPO of 10.37 and the Samsung of 9.47, meaning if the iPhone had a bigger battery, same size as the others, it would definitely annihilate all devices here when it comes to battery drain. Hopefully they do increase that going forward. After 9 hours and 42 minutes, the ROG Phone 5 knocks out over here, meaning the ROG Phone 3 will place first, but by how much more than its successor, the ROG Phone 5. They do have the same size battery, so I was really surprised to see this, especially since the ROG Phone 5 has a more efficient chipset. 8% after 10 hours here, it has made it to the 10-hour mark, 18 minutes longer lasting than the ROG Phone 5. How much longer can it go on for, and how much more can it rub it in its successor, saying, hey guys, I'm still the battery king, even here in 2021. I've seen the ROG Phone 3 last up to 12 hours when set to 60 Hz, which we have over here. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. It's a little inconsistent compared to the iPhone, which is pretty much the same, around the 9-hour mark every single time. But we do have some game modes that automatically switch on the ROG Phone 3 and ROG Phone 5 from time to time. I did make sure they were disabled today, though it did pop up in one of the benchmarks. I quickly disabled it. After running Facebook Live TV over here, the ROG Phone 3 clocks out at 10 hours and 54 minutes. Unfortunately, I didn't see it cap out over there, so I only recorded the temperature after 5 minutes of it being off. But 10 hours and 54 minutes is absolutely superb for the ROG Phone 3, which is more than an hour longer lasting than its successor. Fifth place, we have the OPPO Find X3 Pro with 7 hours and 40 minutes, which is still pretty decent with its 4,500 mAh cell, which is the second smallest battery of the lot here. In fourth place, we have the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra with 8 hours and 48 minutes and a 5,000 mAh cell. Absolutely fantastic battery life, but remember, it does have a much larger cell than the OPPO before it. In third place, we have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, might be in third, but 9 hours and 17 minutes with the tiniest battery of the lot here is impressive to say the least. In second place, we have the ROG Phone 5 with 9 hours and 42 minutes. Still absolutely fantastic battery drain time, screen on time here, definitely props to it. But the one that beat it, the one that came out on top, still the king of my channel, the ROG Phone 3, the ROG Phone 5's predecessor, and the successor lost to this guy, 10 hours and 54 minutes here for the ROG Phone 3, which is phenomenal, leaving the ROG Phone 3 still at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to smartphone drains on my channel. 10 hours and 54 minutes, though it has reached 12 hours before that. Then we have the ROG Phone 5, fourth is the iPhone, ninth is the Samsung, but remember, the Xiaomi is still slap bang at the bottom. When it comes to milliamp hour per minute reading, the OPPO was of course the worst with 10.37, but not far behind that was the ROG Phone 5, since it has a much larger cell with 10.31, meaning if the OPPO had the same size cell as the ROG Phone 5, would be pretty neck and neck. But the best of the lot here is still the iPhone with 6.62 milliamp hours per minute, meaning if they all had the exact same size battery as the ROG Phone 5 and 3 at 6,000 milliamps, the iPhone would place first with over 15 hours, second would still be the ROG Phone 3, third would be the S21 Ultra with 10.5 hours. Fourth would be the ROG Phone 5 with 9 hours and 42 minutes, and just 3 minutes behind that, the OPPO Find X3 Pro with 9 hours and 39 minutes, since they had such a similar milliampere per minute reading throughout the test. I'll definitely be giving the ROG Phone 5 a chance to prove itself in terms of battery life when rocking its highest available refresh rate. Stay tuned for that battery drain test in the weeks to come. This is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.